Hi everybody, I'm Mrs. Roberts and welcome to day number 2 of the virtual farm camp for Valley Oaks Charter School. Today we're going to be learning about plants, how plants grow, and more importantly, some magic beans. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is, if you haven't already printed out the papers that go along with today's workshop, then you're going to need the picture of the coloring page of Jack and the Beanstalk that you can color while I'm reading the short story about Jack and the Beanstalk. Jack and the Beanstalk, the original story, was first published back in 1734. And if you were to subtract that from the year today of 2020, that is over 286 years ago. So that was a long time ago. Since then, there's been lots of different versions of Jack and the Beanstalk written, or even movies about. There's even one with Jack and the Beanstalk with Mickey Mouse. I think it's Mickey and the Beanstalk. So I'm going to read you a short story, and while I'm doing that, you can color the page. That is one that you can print out. Jack is a young, poor boy living with his widowed mother and a dairy cow on a farm cottage. The cow's milk was their only source of income. When the cow stopped giving milk, Jack's mother tells him to take her to the market to be sold. On the way, Jack meets a bean dealer who offers him magic beans in exchange for the cow. Jack is excited and makes the trade. When he arrives home without any money, his mother becomes angry and throws the beans out the window and sends Jack to bed without any dinner. During the night, the magic beans cause a gigantic beanstalk to grow outside Jack's window. The next morning, Jack climbs the beanstalk to the land high in the sky, and he finds an enormous castle and sneaks in. Soon after, the castle's owner, a giant, returns home. He smells that Jack is nearby and speaks a rhyme. Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. The giant's wife persuaded him that he must be mistaken and decides to help hide Jack because she knows that he is poor. When the giant falls asleep, Jack steals a bag of gold coins and makes his escape down the beanstalk. Jack climbs down the beanstalk twice more. He learns of other treasures and steals them while the giant's asleep. First, he steals a hen that lays the golden eggs on command, and then a magic harp that plays by itself beautiful music. The giant wakes up when Jack leaves the house with the harp, who is calling out to the giant, and chases Jack down the beanstalk. Jack calls to his mother for an axe, and before the giant reaches the ground, he cuts the beanstalk and causes the giant to fall. Jack and his mother now had everything they needed, and they lived happily ever after. That'd be kind of crazy to have those magic beans that could do that and make us all rich. Okay, feel free to pause the video right here while you go gather up some of the supplies you're going to need. You're going to need a Ziploc baggie, a piece of paper towel, some beans, and you got some beans in the mail if you got your supplies sent to you, or if you just want to use some beans that you have from home, any beans will work. If you want to grow them to eat, though, you might want to have beans, green bean seeds that you'd buy at the store. You're going to need a cup with a little bit of water in it, a measuring spoon, 1 tablespoon, some crayons or colored pencils, and this printout that has pictures of the baggies on it that you'll be recording later on. So I'll pause here while you go gather up your supplies. Okay, now that you have all your supplies, let's put them together so we can grow our beans. You're going to take your paper towel and you're going to fold it so that it will fit inside your baggie. We want to put it inside the baggie where it's going to lay flat. And you're going to get some water and 1 tablespoon of water. And pour it in your baggie so that your paper towel gets completely wet. Now that should be enough for your beans to sprout, but if after a few days you notice that your baggies or your paper towel is getting a little dry, you can add a little bit more water at a time, but you don't want it soggy with water puddled up at the bottom of your bag. You're then going to take your beans, maybe take no more than maybe 2 beans, maybe 3 at the most, and place them on the baggie or on the wet paper towel inside the baggie. When I did mine, I actually turned it over and I put 2 beans on the back side too. So if you have extra beans and you want to do that, you can do that. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to find a warm place to put your bag. You don't want to seal it because they do need to have some oxygen, some air gets to them. So what I did is I took a clip and I hung it on my blinds in my window. So that's how I did mine. So I just went like this and stuck it up in my window. And we're going to wait and watch it grow. The paper that you have, the printout, this one here is where you can draw a picture, crayons, colored pencils, and every couple days, draw a picture of how your bean is growing and what it looks like each day. So I'm going to show you some pictures of the beans that I did when I practiced this a couple of weeks ago. So after just 2 days, my green bean seed looked like this. You can see that that very first root is starting to come down. And if you look at the pinto bean, you can see where that root is starting to poke out on the bottom of that also. When that happens, that means that the bean seed, or any seed, but the bean is starting to germinate. When it's germinating, it has to have something to eat. The plant needs food, nourishment, and all of their nourishment that they're getting right now is coming from inside the bean. That's what it's using to grow. By day 4, the green bean seed and the pinto bean seed had really started to grow more. The bean roots are getting a lot longer. And if you look at the pinto bean, you can also see some green starting to show. And by day 6, those leaves, the stem and the leaves are starting to show as they're starting to poke out of the bean. For some reason, my pinto beans didn't grow quite as fast as my green bean seeds because I had 2 different kinds of seeds planted. And you can see how fast they've grown in only 6 days. And then the last picture I'm showing you is what my seeds looked like inside the baggie as they were growing. At that point, and where they've got the leaves, that's when it no longer needs the food inside the seed to grow. They're using photosynthesis, which is where the plant uses the leaves to collect the energy from the sun and converting it to the food that they need to grow. Once you put the plants in the soil, they then use their roots to get nourishment through the soil also. Okay, the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be planting some seeds into a pot. Okay, here's where we're going to pause the video again so you can go gather some more supplies. This step here is a step that you can do right now, or you might decide you want to wait a little bit and do it later after your seeds in the baggie have already germinated. But if you want to start with some more seeds to do some experimenting and see which grows better, what you're going to need to gather is you're going to need some type of container. You can use an actual pot, flower pot if you have one. I used here a K-cup emptied out with the coffee in it, a styrofoam cup, just a plastic cup, even an eggshell. You could get the egg out of the eggshell and poke a little hole in the bottom and use an eggshell. The K-cup, if you do use it, there's a little hole in the bottom. It's a good idea to put it here so that if it drains out. And again, if you put a little bit of holes in the bottom of your cups, you might want to put them on a tray also. You're also going to need some scissors. You're going to need a couple seeds or beans and some tape at this point. And some soil, either just out of the ground or maybe some potting soil. Okay, now that you've got your cup of dirt or soil, you can take your beans and you can plant them. A bean should be planted of 1 to 2 inches deep. And depending on how big your finger is, it's either going to be about a half of a finger or maybe even a whole finger if you have little fingers, little hands. You're going to stick your finger in and poke a hole and drop your bean in. If you decide you want to do 2 beans in one pot, poke a hole to the side, not right on top of each other. Drop it in and then just push the dirt over the top. Then you're going to get some water and you're going to pour a little bit of water onto it and give it a little bit of a soak. You're going to want to keep watering it a little bit each day. Again, you don't want it really soggy. You just want to keep it moist. This chart here that you printed out, you can also record how your plants are growing each day, just like you did with your one in the seeds that were in the baggies. You can do a little comparison to see which grows faster. Will the seeds growing in the pot of soil grow faster or stronger than the seeds that are growing in the baggie? You might have to wait and see. This picture here is a picture of the seeds that I planted on the same day as the seeds I put in the baggie, and that they grew up this way. Some of my seeds I did were actually green bean seeds, and some of them I did were pinto beans, and they both grew pretty good and about the same. Kind of hard to tell which one's which at this point. This plant here, or there's actually 3 different plants in here, and I have stuck a stick inside here. You could do a stick inside, or you could do something on the outside and tape it on, but I just stuck this in. What you're going to do next is you're going to take one of the papers that you printed out that shows 3 different jacks to choose from. I picked one jack that I liked. I cut him out, and then I made a slight fold like this. I'm going to then take a piece of tape, and as my seed grows, I'm going to put this tape on the back side where I folded it over and put it on there. And if my plant was down here to begin with, as it grew, I would move it up. Move it up this way. And so I can see as my plant's growing, Jack is climbing the beanstalk. And the next day, if the beanstalk is taller, I'll take it and I'll move it up higher on the stick. So it looks as though Jack is actually climbing the beanstalk. And you had 3 different Jacks you could choose from on the things. So pick the one that you like best and see how Jack climbs the beanstalk that you grow. Okay, before we get to the next activity that I have planned, I want to talk a little bit about the plants that you're planting in the pots to grow. You can take this a step farther if you want to make it more challenging, because we're at the point now with this activity, it's going to go on for another week or so, and you're going to be checking it each day. If you want to make it a little more challenge, you could do several cups. You could do those different cups, and you could maybe get soil from different parts of your yard, or maybe from different parts of town, to see if one soil is going to grow better plants than another. Or you might decide you want to water it with something different. Maybe water one with soda and one with coffee and one with water, and see which one grows better. Your other option might be, how much light does it need? How about if you put one of these in a dark place? Would it grow as good as the one that's in the sunny place? So there's lots of ways you can make an experiment out of it to see if you could take it a step farther. Okay, at this point, we're going to pause it again while you gather up some supplies one more time. You're going to need some scissors and a pencil and a couple of the cutouts. One was the word search and one was the plant life cycle paper. So we'll pause it here while you get that stuff together. Okay, now you have 2 sheets that are your plant life cycle. This one here, we're going to cut out those different squares, and you're going to cut them out until you have a total of 6 squares. I jumped ahead and already have 6 cut out for me here. And we're going to lay them out and look and see what we have. We have one that says plant. We have one that says soil. One that says sunlight. One that says sprout. One that says water. and one that says seeds. We're going to use this sheet and we're going to figure out what order are those going to go in. So looking over that, what one do you think would be the very first thing that's going to happen? Look over them. Is it going to be the plant that's number one? I'm going to say, I think it's going to be the soil. That's the first thing we're going to do, is we're going to put that into the pot. So I'm going to put that on number one. What do you think the next thing is we're going to do? Should we water it next? I'm thinking we need to have some seeds in there before we water it, aren't we? So those of you that said seeds, good job. Next thing we're going to need is, like we said, we're going to water it. We need to get some moisture into that pot on that soil so those seeds can germinate. Then, what else does it need to grow? We need some sunlight, and that's actually the warmth from the sunlight. Then it's going to germinate and it's going to sprout. Then finally we're going to have the plant that's grown, and that will be number 6. You can tape those down, glue them down, or you can play it over and over again, whichever you'd rather do. And then the last thing I threw in there was a Jack and the Beanstalk word search. So take your pencils, your crayons, a highlighter, and mark it and see if you can find all of those words. Looks like there's 6 of them. Some of them go up and down, some of them go backwards. So put on your thinking caps and be able to find those. Thank you everybody for joining me today as we learned about beans and growing some plants. I hope you had a good time, and I hope everybody's thumbs are green and that they have good luck with their plants growing over the next week or so. Stay tuned for tomorrow and see what's going on at farm camp. I think I heard some chickens in the background. Bye-bye everybody.